So real quick, hello, welcome to Hot Takes, Boom Boom Hot Takes. So if you don't already know that this is a show which the employees of 116 and West go live on YouTube and Instagram every month to really answer the questions about our experience, marketing, agency life, pretty much everything that's going on in general in the world that we live in. So today you've got me, Dustin Cook, hot and fresh out the kitchen. I've been at 116 and West for coming up on a year, which has been bananas to think about. Up until then, I was working in Seattle for about the past 11 years. Bounced around at a ton of different agencies, worked with clients such as Verizon, T-Mobile, Metro PCS, Microsoft, HP. So kind of have a good amount of experience. I know 11 years, and I don't even have that bad of bags under my eyes. So still keeping it fresh, the accounts world. So really, if you've sent any questions so far, I've got my questions right here. I'm going to go ahead and get this answered. Anything pops up that you're burning to ask me, go ahead and type it in. We'll get going on that. So we will get started with the first question. So I've got my Red Bull, so I'm going to be sipping on that. And this is great. And if you know me at all, starting 7 minutes late that's how I roll. Never on time. First question from Cassie in Tallahassee. She writes, can you explain what you do in your role? Well, that is a good question. So the main focus of my role is really to build and foster client relationships. That's essentially what we do. I work to strategize with clients to really figure out what their business needs are and dive in and make sure that we are able to provide them what they need to hit those goals, of course, in the marketing and advertising landscape. In addition to that, I work with our creative team, our media teams, just to make sure that everything is jiving and flowing right with what the client's hoping to get. So essentially, and I've said this 100 times, and I'm sure you guys have all heard me, but I'm the voice of the client to the agency, and then the voice of the agency to the client. So I'm sort of the middle man between it all, the face of the agency in some ways. So it's a good role. It's kind of every day is completely different, which is great. And that's why I love my job. And that's why I'm still in the agency world 11 years later. So that's that. Next question. What did you major in? So I majored in communications from the grade school of Bowling Green State University in Bowling Green, Ohio. So I was originally born and raised in Anchorage, Alaska, popped over to Bowling Green. And Bowling Green is essentially two streets that used to be cornfields. They just plowed it over. One street's bars, one street's the university. So good time. My liver is damaged for life because of it. So anyways, back to school. Communications with a minor in marketing. Follow-up question with that is, do you think you need a major in advertising to be an account executive? Maybe. I mean, I think it doesn't hurt for sure. You know, it's interesting because me and my wife were talking about this the other day. It'd be interesting to sit on like a marketing or advertising 101 class and just see how that's done, because I feel like I would be in the back being like bullshit, but I don't know. So I can't really tell you if it would be a huge benefit. I know for me it wasn't. Really, I think the one thing that has helped me most within the accounts world has really been my experience in the food industry, which kind of sounds crazy, but if you can deal with 10 tables during dinner rush hour, you got a couple Karens who are just pissed off at you and want to talk to the managers. You got kids who just want free French fries and sodas, and you're running around with your head cut off. Like, I think that is where you can really get a lot of the experience in the account world. Now, I know if you go apply for a job, you say, hey, I didn't go to school, but I worked at the Dirty Bird, so hire me as an account executive. That's probably not going to happen. But it was the one bit of experience that continues through my day-to-day, which is a lot of times just controlled chaos. but it's good. It's great. And so I think having the experience in the food industry helped me out quite a bit. I mean, obviously going to school helped me out quite a bit as well. But that was sort of one little piece of advice. Next question. What is your favorite part about your job? There's a lot. So I've been in this industry for some time, about 11-ish years. I love just building those relationships with the clients. I love getting to know them, getting to understand the businesses. There's so many accounts that I've worked on that I just don't know anything about. Phone industry, like just I don't know anything about that. Microsoft, I mean, I'm not the biggest computer guy. HP, the printers, I don't know. So it's this crazy industry where you're able to get in, really fully understand business of it, and essentially become an expert in that business, which is really cool. And it's a lot of fun. In addition to that, I work with extremely cool people. I feel like folks who work in the marketing and advertising world are fun, a little bit more funky. You really can't be too much of a tight ass. Like everyone has got a very fun personality and a lot that they bring to the table. And so a lot of times you're just hanging out with smart, creative misfits and who curse and hang out and like to just sort of go to work, do their thing, go out, have a good time. It's a good vibe of people at every agency that I've worked at across the board. So I really think that is a huge part of it. And that's what makes me excited. And the fact that we get to work on really cool shit. So I don't know, it's hard because I don't want to brag, but a lot of my friends that I grew up with or went to school with, when they're telling about their job, it's just so boring. And that's just to me, and I think with my personality, but I think I feel so lucky to be in the position I'm in right now and be able to work on fun stuff and actually be able to not only understand what the client wants and deliver that, but then also to have it come to life. I remember very young in my career, and I'll talk a little bit about it later, but I was in media and put up on a billboard that was in downtown Seattle. And my mom came to visit, and I was like, Mom, I have to take you over here. So I drove her past this billboard, and I was like, look, this billboard, I did this. And she was like, whoa, you made the picture? I was like, well, no, I didn't make the picture, but I put it there. I placed the media, and now it's there. And she was like, cool. So it's a fun vibe to be able to see something that you produce and actually have come to life. It's awesome. It's great. If anyone's actually out there and a young buck looking at potentially being in this world, do it. Yeah, so that's that. Favorite part of my job. What's the most fun account that I've worked on? I'm not credible for this one. I think the most fun account that I've worked on was probably my time at working on the Metro PCS account, which bled into T-Mobile, just because T-Mobile owns Metro, but specifically inside of Metro. With that, so early on in my career, I knew that I wanted to work on sponsorships and activations. I came in to the industry, and specifically at one of the agencies I was at, they would send out a newsletter to the sponsorship team every year and say, we're doing this with the Packers and this across the board and this concert and with this artist. And I was like, whoa, that is what I want to do. So it was always sort of a dream that I had and a goal with not a whole lot of opportunity there to do it. So anyways, fast forward through my career a little bit, I was able to take on a sponsorships and activations lead when I came on the Metro PCS account, which is now called Metro by T-Mobile. And it was incredible. With that account, I led the ideation, development, and execution of national sponsorships. Got to work with some really cool people, got to travel a lot. I was able to go to ESPN studios and just kick it and meet some of the folks there you see on ESPN and SportsCenter every day. I got to hang out on the SportsCenter set. got to go to UFC events, and I'm a big fan of the UFC. So really, I got to live out my childhood dream with a lot of that. I got to meet a lot of cool celebrities and just work on fun stuff. It was one, again, when I bring back to the billboard, like, look at, I helped place this billboard to, well, this actually commercial you're seeing on TV within the NBA space. Like that came from a lot of my brain and hard work and my team's work. So it was cool to actually find to be able to be in that position, working in sponsorships and activations. And it was great. I loved it and had a blast. And if you ever have the opportunity to do that, it's fun just because it takes you in a different space. And it's so specific to your client and their demo. And being able to really kind of put yourself in that position and say, what is, and I know that's a lot of our industry is, what's our target audience looking at and what are they doing and what are they into? But one step further, like, they're huge fans of sports. Okay, well, what sports specifically? Okay, well, then let's do this inside of here. Rather than let's do a spot, let's do, like a halftime feature, things like that. So it was just a blast to be able to kind of put on a little bit of a different hat than the norm and think strategically. So by far, I think that was the most fun account that I've worked on. Do you have any funny account service experience to share? That's tricky because I've been in the industry for a long time, and I feel like it's a goofy world that we work in. And oh, sorry, I just looked over Instagram. If anyone's watching me on Instagram, so yeah, so it's a goofy world. So there's always fun stuff that's happening. I would say one experience that comes to mind, it was an account that I work on, and a lot of these accounts, I'm not going to say what they are or drop any names because I don't want to, get in trouble or wake up with a horse's head in my bed. But specifically, I had a client not too long ago who loved to party, like party. And with our agency, we were kind of tasked, it was an account that was huge. We really needed the account. So the accounts team did accounts, of course, but then also was a walking credit card, best friend, shoulder to cry on, everything across the board. So it was a really unique situation and account to work on. Great experience. I loved it. I feared for my life sometimes, but it was a fun experience. Anyways, so the client loved to party, have a good time. One night we were out, the night was kind of winding down, and he had a meeting with his boss the next morning early. So he's kind of half falling asleep, half messing with his phone. And then he shows me an email that he has pulled up to his boss, essentially saying, F you, how dare you make a meeting this early when I'm out. I'm not going to join. If you ever want to meet again, I suggest you do it later in the afternoon. So not a good email that you want to send your boss. After a lot of convincing, hey, can I look at your phone? I completely changed the email to F you, I'm drunk, to hey, I have a tummy problem. I ate something that's not settling, and can we push our meeting back a couple hours? So after lots of convincing, he sent that email versus the I don't like you to the boss. Everything was fine. Woke up the next morning, brought it up to him, and he just was like, oh yeah, thanks. And that was extent. I'm like, cool, man, I saved your job. But that was just kind of was part of the gig. And it was always sort of herding cats with that account. So it was really fun. And that was just kind of the norm with that business that we worked on. So I think that's probably one of my more funny, memorable experiences that I'm allowed to share. Next question. What are some of your favorite campaigns you've worked on for a client? So it's tricky because there's a lot that come to mind immediately. Obviously, some of the UFC stuff, which I said earlier, was fantastic, and I loved working on it. And with that, I essentially the clients leaned on me for everything. So they had picked up the UFC as one of their sponsorships because they knew that it fell within inside of their demo. But no one within inside of my agency, no one within inside of the client world knew essentially anything about the UFC. And so I was able to come in and immediately just start, this is great, this is not great, we should do this opportunity. And so every time there'd be, fights coming up in the future, I would get pinged, hey, is this going to be a good fight? Should we throw dollars behind this? Should we pull out? And so it was fun just sort of being the knower of all things. And then the fact that, I've got to go to the UFC fights, meet fighters, really be a part of that world was awesome. In addition to that, we did a lot of sponsorships with Pandora. So they would give us, we would spend X amount of dollars with them and they would do these added value concerts. And so setting that up, putting the whole day to life, and that was everything. It was kind of a different space with inside of my world, but it was, food, drinks, who's the artist going to be? Why should we pick this artist? And so it was a lot of working with clients who were maybe a little bit older. And so they're like, who is this Cardi B? And I'm like, yes, need to work with her. And they're like, I don't know about that. What's J-Lo doing? We're like, I don't know, but we can't get J-Lo. So it was a fun gig to be able to work on something like that and stay hip with some of the new music that was coming out, which again was completely different than the work I've done at other agencies. But that was always fun. HP, I got to work on a worldwide anti-counterfeiting campaign, which was great. It doesn't seem real, but people actually make fake ink and toner, sell it online, mostly to government agencies who make these huge orders. They kind of mix it all in there. So by the time that actually gets to IT, they put it in there, it blows up the printer. Those folks are gone. They've changed their name and they're in another country, so it's hard to find. So doing this huge campaign of, locating talent, making sure that the translation was right. I specifically remember being in studio and my boss, who spoke Portuguese, jumped in when it was being recorded. Was like, hey, you can't say that. That is not cool. That's actually kind of derogatory. So it just meant something else in a different way. So really being able to try to think oh, is this going to offend anybody? It was cool. It was a completely different world. And then lastly, I think Plymouth Housing was another one that I really loved working on. And that was, I believe that they're just based out of Seattle. They they essentially build up homes for folks who are struggling and get them off the streets. And that was really cool because it was a really big campaign that we did with a tiny budget. It was all pro bono, so we only had a few dollars set aside to work on it. But we did an outdoor campaign, some digital work that was just beautiful. And our agency went out and did the shots and really showed different areas in Seattle and saying this looks like a doorway to anybody else, but to someone else, this is their bed. Or a garbage can. It was like, this looks like a garbage can, but to somebody else, this is where they find their dinner or whatever it was. So it was really cool to be able to work on something like that with such a small budget and be able to make that stretch. Then also, see that out walking down the street, damn, that's really, really impactful. So that was definitely one that was fantastic to work on, which is funny because that budget was like 20 grand versus, millions of dollars of campaigns that I've worked on. So it just, every campaign is a little bit different, but I would say those are some of my bangers that I've worked on. So I just got a question popped up. I'm not sure how would I do this. So if I'm going to answer the questions in real time, it says, do you think your college drinking experience has helped you in your role now? That's, I don't know. I'm going to say so. Within our industry, people go out, have drinks. That's just kind of part of the norm. Clients often like to go out and have drinks. So I feel like my seasoning up my liver a little bit has helped me stay on my toes when out drinking with clients. I can't even count how many times I've been out with clients who've just gotten sloppy, and I've been able to maneuver, get them home, get them out of their seats, back to the hotel room. So I think that was probably some good experience I had. But then I also feel like college, I was Greek, and I had a group of friends who I don't even think we've ever said anything nice to each other. I mean, I think even on my wedding day, they were just giving me shit, and just because that's just what we do. We're really mean to each other. So I think that actually helps. In addition, within inside of this space, because sometimes clients are heated, sometimes things are on fire. So to be able to have a little bit thicker skin, if a client is very upset with you and decides to have some, to vent a little bit, it doesn't hurt as bad as some of the things that I've heard from my best friends on a Tuesday morning. So I think that definitely helped out quite a bit. So I like it. So things are popping up on my screen, and I'm not too tech savvy, so I'm just going to see what's going on here. That is not what I want to do. Cool. So next question. What is the most difficult part about your job? I think it's the emotional investment that goes into it. Being on the client side. I mean, I think everyone across the board has this, but specifically, because we're the ones who, share the news with the client. So there's a lot of highs and lows. If the campaign knocked it out of the park, then that's great. You're the hero. They want to prop you on the shoulders and carry you around. It's all good. But there's also times where a campaign, it doesn't really perform as well as we hoped. And it's a bummer because a lot of work goes into it. But then inside of that work, you also know that the client dollars go into it. And so working on some larger accounts where, they'll sign off on a couple $1 million, no problem at all. It's different because we're able to test a lot more. But working with smaller clients, it's hard because you're like, damn, you really could have used that money. And maybe it could have benefited had we done something differently. Now we know that this campaign didn't work because XYZ. But at that point, it's kind of almost too late. Now, luckily, that doesn't happen often. Had a lot of success in working on great campaigns, but I think there's a lot of emotional investment in it. My poor wife, when she was pregnant with our first kid, it was a New Year's Eve special that we sponsored. It was Pitbull from Miami. And I was kind of bummed because I had the opportunity to go to Miami and hang out with Pitbull and do all that, but my wife was due the next day. So obviously that was not going to happen. So I remember her laying in bed, trying to watch it, not really feeling too hot. And I was on my phone real time, just working all throughout the night as things were going live. As the next thing was coming on and coming down, I was literally there rather than being at home, kind of just chilling out with my wife, but was just completely on. So I think that's definitely an emotional part, is how easy it is to take that home with you and not only want the most for your client, but also the best for your agency. If we do good, of course our agency looks great, and we're able to kind of prop ourselves up on that. But then also, if things ever do go bad, it's a bummer. It sucks. It's definitely probably the lowest of the lows, is that you have to essentially go back and say, hey, this didn't work. Here's why it didn't work. Here's our recommendation moving forward. But then also getting past that, because a lot of the work that we do is, clients trust us. And the more experience we have with them, the more trust they put into us, which is great because we're able to kind of push them in different directions every now and then, just to make them a little bit uncomfortable, but saying, let's try this, it's going to do this. And so if you keep on having those wins, then that's fantastic, but having a loss will take it back a couple steps. So that's definitely one of the bummers about the job. So next question, how do you go about finding a good lead on potential new client? So I'm a nerd. I love the world that we live in. With that, I take a lot of pride in trying to dig up new clients, trying to bring that to the agency. I spend I don't know. I'd have to ask Carolyn what my timesheet says, but I would probably say an hour, maybe a little over that each week, just searching for new RFPs and businesses. And with that, I know what our agency has to offer. And a lot of times it's pretty obvious if we're going to be a good candidate for a new business. But then sometimes it's just cool business. So you kind of just have to like throw up a Hail Mary and go for it and see if it works. Miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Wayne Gretzky and Michael Scott. I quote The Office a lot. You can see I have my Dwight quote behind me. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a big part of it. I want to bring clients to the agency, and I know that we do kick-ass work out of here. So if I have the opportunity to locate a potential client and for us to create one of our proposals, which look beautiful, it's rad. I love getting that out the door. And I think a lot of it is the work that goes into it. Our team does fantastic work. Everything looks beautiful. And looks great. And I feel like if I received a proposal like that as a client, I would be like, here's my wallet, because this is phenomenal. So I think it's just a lot of digging. I have my different channels that I'm on, constantly searching. And when something does pop up, that's the first thing I do is reach out internally to see if that's could potentially be a good fit. A lot of times it's RFPs went out on a Wednesday and everything's due back on Friday. So it's just a huge hustle to try to get everything knocked out in time, which we've been able to do after putting in lots of hours. But it's a part of the business, especially working on more of a small business side. Just how important it is, to keep the lights on. We don't have millions and millions of dollars coming in revenue from some of these larger clients. So having sort of my assistance in trying to bring in new clients is something that's really important to me. So yeah, that's kind of how I go about it. Next question. How do you prepare for particularly difficult clients? That is a good one, because I have dealt with clients all across the board. It's interesting with inside this industry and especially within the account side, because you get clients who are great. They want to chat. First thing we talk about on Monday was how was soccer practice, how was this and this and this, and so they're all about that. But then I've also had other clients who are just like, I don't give a shit about your weekend. We're going to focus on the work, which is great too. Everyone's completely different. So I think it's really knowing and understanding their communication style has been huge. I am pretty chatty, but I also know when to reel it back a little bit. And I've seen folks come and go within my industry who kind of sometimes don't know when to reel back a little bit, or others who they don't talk enough. And there's a lot of white space out there, and the clients are essentially like, what's this person's problem? So you got to keep kind of a good balance. Instagram says reconnecting, and okay, it looks like it's working now. So really understanding the client's personality types, I think, is huge. But then also, I think a lot of it just comes with, you have to have thick skin, because there's been clients, I'm particularly thinking of one who just loved to throw you off, would just throw random things your way that were completely irrelevant to anything, just to be mean. And I felt like there was like a bit of a power trip, which happens, and this is very, very rare. It's definitely a personality thing, where they always have to be the loudest voice, the smartest person, and very powerful in the room. So essentially that is, making others feel a little bit less. And so with that, I just want to be like, who hurt you? Why are you so mean? But again, it's our job. So that's the last thing you're going to do is call them out on that. So a lot of it is just prepping for that and being like, okay, I know I have to go into a meeting with so-and-so. I'm going to be buttoned up. I'm going to have everything ready to go. Any kind of questions that come at me, I'm going to have ready to answer. If I don't have it on hand, I'm immediately going to follow up and get back to it. But then it's also just kind of going in there and be like, damn, this is going to suck. And knowing that you can joke about it later is huge. And again, I think having thick skin is very important. I've seen a lot of tears from my colleagues over the years. So I kind of go into those meetings as like, this person is going to make somebody cry. And then rather than shaking and kind of being nervous about it, I almost kind of approach it like, I cannot wait to tell this story to everyone later on, because this is like so nuts. So if you take it that way, it's a little bit more easy to digest rather than just getting beat up on. Next question. What was the riskiest client move that you've ever made? With that, I think, and a lot of this is going to go back to my work in my most recent role, just because I think it's super fresh in my mind. And again, maybe my partying days in college kind of killed out my short-term memory. So with that, I would have to say it was when I was working on the Metro business, and they were doing a sponsorship with the television show Jane the Virgin, which ended, I believe, last year. So they had done it a couple of years up until I was there, and it was stale. Going into commercial breaks, they would say, "This is how Jane figured it out. You could too. Metro PCF, yada yada." So they would go through their whole entire, 5-second integration that they had, leading into the first commercial break. And it was stale. I mean, it really wasn't worth the money. There's really nothing that came out of it. So when the next upfront season came around, they did not want to move forward with it again, which for good reason. But I knew the client, I knew the business so well. I knew the target, the demo, who we're going after. And I was like, we have to do this. Like, this fits everything across the board. It checks off all the boxes. This is who we really want to hit. So then I actually had a conversation with CW and my contact over there, and was like, hey, this is potentially on the chopping block. We need to figure out a way to keep this integration going, but freshen it up. And so it went from just being, a 5-second, they call it a quickie, CW, and to like by the time we actually landed on where the ideation came, because my biggest thing, we were trying to go with more of an emotional appeal. And so a lot of the talent on the show had crazy backstories. And so we were essentially able to build out a bit of a custom content piece in short and long form that had the talent, talking about their lives growing up, their whole backstories, because a lot of them, came from Hispanic demo, which essentially Metro at the time was, always looked through everything through a Hispanic lens, and just talking about their lives. And I'm horrible with names, but one of the cast members, she's on that show, and she was also on Orange and the New Black. If I remember the story right, she came home and with her brother from school one day, and her family was gone, like they got deported. And so she talked about that for a little bit and touched on that, and it was very, very emotional and good. And bringing that to life and having that out there. And once it was said and done, it was awesome. I was super excited. With that, I was really excited with the results. We kicked ass. I mean, the ratings were good. The interactions online were fantastic with it. The long form video had a crazy completion rate. And so at the end of the day, I was able to go back to the clients and say, hey, you wanted to cut this, but now look what happened. This kicked major ass. And so it was a risky move because I put myself on the line and said, hey, we need to do this sponsorship. They had enough trust in me where they were able to be like, okay. I mean, it was like $300K or something like that with the sponsorship. So it was not cheap. And they kind of just let me do it. And we ended up, knocking it out of the park, which was great. You can still see it online. And it was cool. It was something that I was really proud of because I essentially was able to bring this back from the dead to where it landed. And we ended up cutting it the next year, but it was good at the time. So I think that's the riskiest client move I ever made. going into the next question, what are a couple skills that a professional in accounts must have? So this is tricky because I feel like there's a lot of skills. Obviously, you have to have strong communication skills, just because you have to be able to communicate with the clients, but then also communicate with the team. If the client says, I want XYZ, you have to be able to go back and tell the team exactly what they want because they can hear the voice of the client. You really can't leave anything out just because they're basing everything on the information that you provide them. You have to be able to multitask, which is very, very important. Organize. I feel like a mediator, a lot of times we kind of have to be confident. Confidence it's pretty big. Even if you don't know what you're talking about, you have to be able to say it confidently, just because a lot of clients will just eat it up. If you were going there with a little bit of a shaky voice, they're not going to have it, and they're going to, depending on the client, kick your ass. So that's really important. I said thick skin. Again, I think that's, and I'm making it sound like we get abused. We don't. A lot of our clients most of our clients, 99% of our clients are awesome and super kind, but sometimes you get some crummy ones. Sometimes, you're just like, who pissed in your cornflakes this morning? Like, why are you so mean to me? But that's just how it is. And so I think you have to have thick skin and be able to go about it and bob and weave here and there, but then also have a sense of humor that breaks up tension, that just makes everything so much better across the board. A couple quick questions. I know that we're running out of time here. I didn't realize how long-winded I am with this. A couple things I wanted to answer. Do you need to be a people person? I think this is really important within client industry because you do and you don't. You have to be able to turn it on. But there's also, I like to go home and be quiet and kind of chill out a little bit. So I think you have to be able to turn it on and turn it off. But essentially, that's our role. That's 100% of our job is we are the point of contact for the client. So you have to be a people person and be able to hold and maintain those conversations. And then one last thing, if you, and I know I'm running out of time here. One thing that I really wanted to call out is, can you think of a specific situation where a big breakthrough for your career and was a big turning point for you? I wanted to dive into this a little bit just because I think if you want to be in this industry, it takes a lot of hustle, and you have to be able to be hungry and make it in there. When I first landed my real gig in Seattle, it was huge for me. I moved out to Seattle. I had no money. I only had a small amount of experience under my belt. I was completely broke. Spent some time sleeping in my car, showering at the gym. What I would do is I would go to the store, grab bananas, and at the time, Jack in the Box did 2 tacos for $1. So that was what I did. I would eat tacos and bananas, and that was how I figured bananas. I don't know anything. Bananas healthy, tacos are good for me, and I'm just gonna live off that. And that's what I did. And I did that for some time, and it was a hustle. I worked the night shift at a scanning place where I just scanned documents. I would wake up. I had an internship, but it was unpaid. I had to pay for park, and if anyone's ever paid for parking in Seattle, it's expensive. So I was losing money working at this internship, but I knew what I wanted to do. And then the time that I had available, I was blasting out my resume. I was reaching out to every single agency, anybody who would listen to me within Seattle, just to meet and have a conversation with, and just, informational interviews, give me some advice on what I can do, because I need to make it in this industry or I'm not going to. So there was a lot of hustle that went into it. And I think it was probably the lowest point in my life, was trying to get into this field, just because I wanted it so bad. And I knew that I was either going to do it or there's nothing else. There's no other option. And so it's okay, well, another day, no calls, nothing coming in. Okay, get it again tomorrow. So it was just, I don't know, it was kind of a hustle. And I was super depressed. It really beat me up, but I think it also helped build thick skin to try to get me where I am right now. I was finally able to interview for a position. 2 interviews went in. I thought I did great. They called me and said, hey, we're going to somebody else. So I was crushed. But then they had another role that opened up, so I ended up landing that gig, and really from there, everything completely changed for me. So if that's the one little piece of advice I can give to anyone, is that like, if you want to be in this field, just hustle. You have to try to make it work, and get in there and get in front of the people and ask questions and do everything you can, because it's a phenomenal field. I love every bit of it. I'm so appreciative of the experience I have and everything that I'm able to sort of bring to the table now. But had I just given up when things got tough, I don't know where I would be, but I definitely wouldn't be here. So that's that. So nice little cheery thing to leave you on. I got like 100 more questions, but I talk a lot, so I think we're going to wrap this up. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Leave a comment and let us know what you hear about, or what you want to hear about next time. Hit the subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at 116 and West. And that's it. So everyone, good talking to you. Have a good day. Take care. I'm going to try to turn this off without looking too awkward.